Welcome to our Urban Legends podcast. I'm Dr. Gloria McDaniel Hall. I've been a teacher, a principal, and assistant superintendent, all within urban schools in Chicago and around the country. Our Urban Legends podcast is a forum for sharing ideas, strategizing together, and supporting each other as we dismantle the deficit narratives sometimes associated with urban education and discuss where and how amazing work is being done. So I am super excited today because my guests are actual students. I've interviewed former students before, but I haven't talked to any real students, people who are in school right now, and gotten their perspective on what makes an excellent school or an excellent teacher. So I'm really excited to have Dr. Tina Curry and two of her former students. We got Kendall and Glenford. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to start with intros. So Kendall, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and maybe the schools that you've gone to.
Cool. My name is Kendall Canterbury. I'm 17-year-old at the moment, and I'm graduated. Well, I recently graduated early from Syracuse STEM Academy, and really my whole journey from kindergarten all the way to high school, even getting to the point where I am now, it's like a movie. It's really just everything just happens so fast. I can still feel like I still remember like the times at elementary school and all the time. Like,
isn't that amazing how time flies though?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, Kendall, what do you think your plans are for next year? What do you
Next year I was going to trade school and get my welding's license and my barber's license.
Perfect. Nice to meet you, Kendall. Nice to meet you. Right, Mr. Glenford Flowers.
All right. I'm a senior at Surrey Good. I'm 18 years old, and outside of school, I am a revolutionary activist. My journey since kindergarten, I'd say it was kind of crazy, to be honest. Especially when it comes to me developing the way I am now. It was certainly a roller coaster. Started at Dawes, and I went to St. Bede and St. Lawrence, and then finally at Surrey Good. And what I plan to do next year, go to a 4-year university and major in political science, pre-law, and also take sociology and philosophy as well. I plan to run in government as a legislator.
You two, I can't even tell you how beautiful you are right now. Like, I just wanna cry. Okay. All right, Dr. Tina Curry, tell me a little bit about your journey.
Oh, wow. I didn't start out as a teacher. I actually wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a journalist. And it didn't work out. And so a friend of mine said, why don't you apply to be a substitute teacher? I was like, oh no, I don't know if I want to teach. And I got my first substitute teaching job. And after about 3 weeks, students were writing me love notes. They were bringing me beautiful gifts. They were hugging me. And I thought, this is the best job in the world.
Best job in the world.
I want to be a teacher. I found my calling. So I went to school, got my credentials, and became a teacher. And I've been an educator now for over 2 decades. And I've done so much. I've been a literacy coach, an instructional coach, an equity coach. I've been an interventionist, but out of all the roles that I have had, the one that has been the most gratifying to me has been that of a teacher. And I learned so much from my students, way more than I did from my textbooks. My students, like Kendall and Glenford, taught me how to teach them in the context of their lives. And they taught me how to make their education real and life affirming. And so being their teacher has been one of my greatest honors. And I cannot tell you, Glenford and Kendall, how humbling it is to be sharing today's platform with you.
Isn't that, I can't believe this is just so amazing. So, okay, this question is for all three of you really, but I want to start with the students. If you were to think of a great teacher that you've had, and I know if Dr. Curry was your teacher, you're going to think about her, but if you were to think about a great teacher that you've had, or like if you could create a great teacher, what would the characteristics of that person be?
Dr. Curry's.
What is is it that what happens? Because I know, so I've seen it like in classrooms where you go in and it just feels like magic is happening in the room. It doesn't, I wouldn't know who were the students who were below level, who were the students who were the teacher's pets. Like there is no such thing. Like it's just like magic. What are the components of that though, Kendall? Like what did she do from the moment you met her that let you know this is going to be an awesome experience for me?
Even before I met her, like I heard like a lot of like from the seniors that graduated before me, they really like told me like, hey, Dr. Curry, you need to get in our class. We need to talk to her. And it's just like, okay, cool. And then when I actually had a class, like when the pandemic happened, I really felt, even though it wasn't in person, but I still felt like I felt her love for teaching. I felt like she actually cared like about the students and like the things that she taught. Everything that came out her voice was really like, it was meaningful, and she actually like felt that, like wanted to teach us what she knows. So it was really like, it was more so like on a personal level. She didn't see us as a student. She saw us like as people.
As people.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, Glenford, you got something to add?
To sort of add on to what Kendall was saying, Dr. Curry showed what a lot of characteristics that other teachers don't really show a lot. And it's sort of like a combination of just honesty and mutual respect, and in general, just mutualism, because a lot of teachers expect one-sided sort of conversations where, oh, you have to respect the teacher, and then it doesn't really go back and forth. And I feel like when you get to really understand the student and vice versa, it's more easier to cooperate and more easier to understand than just sort of being fed information from what you perceive as like a robot.
So one big question I have is sometimes people of all races, right, that are working in our schools feel like they feel sorry for students, or they feel like that's the road that they should take in order to show that they like students, or you make the expectations lower. Like, how do you keep, Dr. Curry and students, like, how do you keep the level of rigor high? How do you keep the expectations high and students know that you mean business, but also get that reaction that Glenford and Kendall are talking about right now?
So I think as an educator, first, your expectations have to be realistic. And you have to move from all students to each student. What does this student need from me today in this moment to be her best self or to be his best self? And what Kendall needs may not be what Glenford needs. What Glenford needs may not be what Alex needs. And so it really boils down to getting to know your students and meeting them where they are. When you think about some of the most extraordinary people of our time, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, when you interview them, they all say the same thing. Like, I took something that I knew I could do well, and then I worked on that, and they became extraordinary human beings. So taking children where they are, what are they on the verge of learning? What are they ready to know? And then children do become extraordinary. But if you take a kid, your expectations are like so far out there, they don't have the foundation, they don't have the background knowledge, they don't have the prior experience to learn it. Even students who work hard enough will only just become mediocre. But so if you take a kid with what they're ready to learn, Dr. Hall, they far succeed your expectations of them.
I think the reason why a lot of people shy away from middle school and high school is that the habits and behaviors that children have are like really formed at that point. And it's harder especially if you're not genuine, it's harder to build relationships because those kids can see through you and know that you jive or know that you're real, right? So when you encounter students, Dr. Curry, whose skill level might be like lacking, what are some of the strategies that you use to build that up while you're building up the other side of them?
Well, it actually works the way it works for adults. You take something that a kid likes. Let's say you teaching an 8th grader who's reading at a 2nd grade level, but this kid loves Pokemon. So you start bringing in books about Pokemon. You start talking about Pokemon. And then eventually you say, hey, You know what? Can I share with you this extraordinary, amazing athlete named Colin Kaepernick? Can I show you what he did? Then you move the kid to, hey, I want you to learn about some of the greats of the civil rights movement. I would love for you to learn about Malcolm X and then Dr. King. And then before you know it, that kid has gone from Pokemon to reading the autobiography of Malcolm X.
And wanting to read it and wanting to read
And
it.
wanting to read it.
So I could hear from both Kendall and Glenford this idea of kind of like activism. And I know that that's your thing. Like you're not comfortable just with it being the status quo. Like you want to push this practice so that it becomes better. I want to know from the students, like, what does that look like? Like when you go to Dr. Curry's class, like what happens when you walk in? How do you get empowered to know that I can make this better, or this can be better? Or how does she make you feel that? I know she does, because I've seen, I was on a call with her one day when it was a walkout, and I knew it was students from her class and they felt empowered to do that. I don't know if you two were participating in that, but like, what is that conversation like where you get ready to, like, I have the right to speak up for myself? How does that happen?
It's really like the energy that she gives is really just like telling us that we have a mind of our own and we can use our mind to actually speak how we feel. And there's a lot of students, like even at home, where they can't really speak how they feel. They have to listen to like their parents and stuff. But then when we get into her class, it's really just like, speak how you feel, speak what's on your mind, really express how you feel. So like everyone will know how you feel regardless of the topic.
Okay. What'd you think, Glenford?
I'll be honest, I have no idea. It's like when I enter Dr. Curtis' space, like her classroom, it's like it's a whole different environment. And maybe I just can't think of it right now, but it's just the environment in her classroom and the fact that you can feel like, I don't know if safe is the right word, but feel comfortable being yourself. And it's a space that I never experienced in any other classroom from any other teacher. And I'm basically simplifying what Kendall was saying, but it's sort of like that in a way.
That is amazing. How do you think about that though, Dr. Curry? And what exact subject are you responsible for teaching, or were you when you were their teacher?
So the class that Kendall and Glenford had with me is a public speaking class. And I rewrote my curriculum after George Floyd was murdered. I knew then I could not go back into my classroom doing same old, same old. And I wanted my Black boys in particular to have an education that was real and life affirming, one where they could read the world, an education where they could navigate racism, an education that would make them unfit for oppression. And so that means I needed to change what I was teaching them, what I was asking them to do, what I was teaching them. And so I was like, I want to teach an activism unit. And that's when I learned that Glenford was already an activist. I was like, wow, because I believe that our young people are our next generation of activists, and they can organize on a scale this world has never seen. And so I stopped saying I want to empower my students, because I realized after having students like Kendall and Glenford, my students already have power. They just needed a teacher to let them use it. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted, and as an educator too, I don't just want my students to be transformed by what I teach. I want to be transformed by what I teach. And so, because I want to go through my own transformation, I want to take that journey with them. I think that's what pushes me, and that's what drives every decision I make. And then I enter everything from an equity stance as well, and a love for my children, knowing that education was not designed for Black children. And I make sure that I'm cognizant that I am not maintaining and worshiping at the altar of the status quo, but that in everything I do, I disrupt it. And I changed the narrative, particularly for Black boys.
So that leads right to the next question. So gentlemen, I really want to hear what you think. And Dr. Curry, I want to hear what you think too, because I know that, so I taught class this morning, and in that class, we're talking about the achievement gap. That achievement gap that existed in 1990 when I was in the classroom is the same achievement gap. We've changed the standards, we changed the laws, we changed the rules, we changed teacher evaluation. We've changed all these things, and it's not working. it's not working for those students who need it the most.
Mhm.
And it's, to me, it's not just Black kids, it's the kids who need it the most. The system is not designed for them somehow. Like, you could change everything, but the teacher and the way the teacher operates, to me, feels like that's the part. And of course, we need more teachers like Dr. Curry. But if you could, I just want to know what you think needs to change about how we do school. Just a general question, how we do school. It could be the schedule, it could be the types of classes we ask people to take or mandate that they take. It could be how teachers engage with students, like anything. What needs to change so that we can get this better?
I feel like what really needs to change is how everyone views students, like everyone in the building views students. I feel like instead of viewing them as students, view them as, you know, a person or like one of your peers, regardless of the age, regardless of like, you know, if they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, like still respect them of who they are and like just the things that they do. And once you respect them as a person, I feel like respect can get you anywhere. It can get you, you know, respect from other teachers, other students. It can really get you anywhere. You can really, you know, like that energy that we was talking about like before, like in the classroom, that can be everywhere if all the teachers respect the students.
Yes, yes. Why do you think so many teachers aren't that way? That's easy, but like,
I feel like just being at home, like, you know how like so with parents, it's just like, hey, I'm the parent, you're a child, you should respect me because I'm older than you and you're learning from me. Like, you're under my roof and everything else. Like in school, it's kind of just like you're in my classroom instead of our classroom. You're in my class. Instead of this is my class. Instead of this is our class, this is my class.
my school, this is our school. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like once it's instead of mine, and this is ours, then everything can really grow and the whole entire school can have the same energy, just like in Dr. Curry's class.
Glenford, what do you think?
Sort of adding on to what Kendall was saying, the schools in general shouldn't treat like the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors as students, but more so young adults that have yet unlocked their potential. And it's their teacher's job to help them unlock that skills and potential that they have yet discovered yet. And I feel like a way to starting that to sort of remaking school is by sort of getting more classes that can really have these students be more interested in classes that can actually help them in the real world, such as cooking classes or home skills, stuff like that, carpentry, things that can actually prepare students for life rather than for just a job that they may not want. Like at Surrey Good, as a STEM school, they have courses that give you one specific field. They have college classes where it prepares you to become a worker for IBM. Not everyone wants to work at IBM. And so when you offer these college classes and really force students into these college classes, because I was forced to take them, it sort of pushes students away because like, oh, that's not for me. And it may not help me in the long run.
And nobody's finding out what you want. Like, nobody's finding out what you want. It's like they come up with this prescription of classes and then just like toss people in them. Especially, I guess, if you have a high GPA, like, yeah, let's put him in that class. Let's put her in that class. Okay.
And you know what, Dr. Hall, I was thinking too about like talking about like achievement gap and motivating students. What I realized, took me a while to realize that you can't force children to be motivated. You can't force them to be inspired, but you can create conditions that motivate. You can create conditions that inspire. A child will want to learn to be motivated to learn when you're teaching them something that they care about, when you're teaching them something that's going to create an opportunity for them, when you teach them something that makes them feel liberated and free, when you teach them something that helps them to solve a problem that's real to them. And then the achievement gap will start to close. You know, and another thing too with the achievement gap, there are two things that come to my mind: anti-Blackness and white supremacy culture. You know the data. Our Black children are overrepresented in special education, underrepresented in gifted programs. They continue to experience educational disparities, racial inequities on a daily basis. And then white supremacy culture is damaging because it leads to white supremacy thinking. And we bring that thinking into our classrooms, and it doesn't benefit our children well. And so the achievement gap just continues to widen.
So the other thing that a lot of schools are dealing with is, and I know it's tied to what we're talking about, is the level of attendance of students. Like when you look at it, and kids, like 80% of them come to school, and basically probably coming to school in high school to hang out with your friends or see them versus what the actual content is that you're doing in school. Because I don't know one high school student, including any of I visited schools in Memphis last week, but I don't know any high school student that I've seen recently that goes, yes, I can't wait to get in that class. Nobody is saying that. Nobody, probably the students in your class, but I haven't met them except for these two. But like, it just feels like it's just so boring all the way around. And then I try to think about like my high school experience. And I think what the difference is, a long time ago, you had to do what they told you to do, or you would be in serious trouble. And now young people are pushing back, like, I don't have to do that. But then you end up having attendance that's jacked up, and then you can't catch up. And then you end up being a dropout, and then you end up doing stuff that you're not supposed to because you've dropped out because school wasn't motivating to you. But no one's ever just tried to figure out why it is the kids don't want to come.
Because school doesn't cultivate joy for our children. So Dr. Hall, if you and I decided we were going to try to go skiing, and we went skiing and you were great at it and I sucked at it, guess what? I'm not going back with you next year. I didn't like it. I didn't have any success. It wasn't fun, but you're going to want to go back. Our young people return to places and people that they find pleasure in.
Yes.
If they don't find pleasure in school, who would want to come back there? If you don't find pleasure in people that are teaching you, why would you want to be in their classrooms? If schools can figure out a way to cultivate joy, cultivate Black joy, we couldn't make them leave. We'd have to kick them out of the school.
Kick them out at the end of the day. Okay, so that leads me to conversations about like the extra things. I don't even want to call them specials or extracurricular. I'm not even sure what it's called in high school, but I remember a long time ago where there would be dance, and this is even pre-COVID. I'm not talking about because of COVID, but like dance and art and music studio, music production and stuff. Does that still happen at the high school level other than sports? Are there truly engaging things that you can do in addition to regular coursework?
There is. The only thing I remember really doing besides sports was robotics, underwater robotics. And I did that my freshman year. It was really just like another escape. Because I feel like that's what school needs to be like, for students to actually stay around. It's like another escape from home. Not everybody wants to be home. And, you know, instead of being outside and stuff, people rather be somewhere like where they're safe. Because where we are, it's not really, safe outside. And it's just like having that, doing underwater robotics got me, had me somewhere that wasn't outside, where like I was still safe, my people were still comfortable with me being out, and I was still doing something productive instead of just being outside,
Okay.
Whatever,
But nothing like artistic, like if I were interested in the arts or dance or...
I know there's like drawing classes, there's painting classes.
Okay.
There's dance groups. I know there's like you can go into the music room and play instruments and like learn how to do instruments. I remember I was trying to play the guitar at one point. I was learning how to play guitar, and yeah, there's a lot, but it's really like students, not a lot of students hear about it.
Mm.
A lot of students, actually think that's like something that they want to do.
What would be some of the extracurricular or after school or even during school things that you think students would be interested in at the high school level?
Including all of those, more teachers where they can communicate to or like talk to. I feel like some students are not really comfortable talking to a counselor or talking
Oh,
to
okay.
um
Or
you
just
know,
having time to talk to a teacher. Okay.
just
Okay.
not really anything, just about like school or just anybody. Instead of just talking to just friends, have actually someone that's like, older and more has the wisdom to actually give to you to actually, fix the issue or just to
Okay.
well.
Okay. Glenford, what do you think?
What Kendall was talking about, that sort of reminds me of a club that I rejoined that's getting restarted. It's called BOSS, the Black Organization for Successful Students, which is
Wow.
getting remade by a bunch of similar activists and students that sort of, like what Kendall said, want to just talk about the issues in a safe space where everyone can listen and respect each other. And there were a lot of classes and clubs that Kendall was talking about, but a lot of those classes and clubs are sort of disappearing in a way. Because I wasn't at very good freshman year. That's when I was transferring, but all those classes and clubs that Kendall was talking about, when I came sophomore year, I didn't see any of that. I didn't get to experience any of that. The only thing remotely I'd say there was a class of interest and something that I remotely had any fun in was I think it was art class. I forgot the class name, but it was like an art class, and I'm taking a ceramics class right now, and that's one of the only classes where I feel like I can be myself, because it's a class where you can make things you feel connected to. You can make pottery or art design, and it's something you put effort in. It's something that you can put all the love and effort in, and it turns out this beautiful creation. And the teachers support that, because it's not only is it a grade, but it's something that you can keep as well.
That's beautiful.
So I feel like there isn't enough classes and enough clubs, especially the fact that they're disappearing, where students can feel embraced and feel more welcomed. So I definitely think there needs to be more of that, because I didn't get the experience what Kendall experienced.
Oh, wow. So just two more questions. The impact of the pandemic and remote learning on students. I know that all the literature says that there were certain groups of students and groups of people who were more adversely affected than others. There were also some positive things that came out of that, because we learned a lot more about using technology and could spread out, like change the way we do things for school and make it just like really engaging for kids in some cases. So for you, what has been the impact of remote learning? Are you glad that we are back, or like, would you prefer to keep it the other way? Like, what are you thinking?
I'm glad that we're back, actually, like, because when it first started, it was so new, and like no one really knew how to use it, and everything was just going on, and just life was just happening, and it was really just it was a struggle, like trying to get like used to everything and not really seeing people and not really talking to people.
Okay.
And, even though it was also good because I got to learn about like myself and like figure out like who I am as a person, it was also just like learning wise and like going to school, it wasn't really clicking. It wasn't really just like everybody was behind the screen. Nobody really turned their camera on. Nobody was really talking. So it's just like, other than that, I didn't want to be in class at the moment. So I just, go to sleep or just not show up and, whatever. But then over time, like even when I was talking, when I had Dr. Curry as a teacher, she kind of motivated me to keep going. I used to come her like after class and I'd be like, hey, this is what's going on, this blah, blah, blah. And she like motivated me to keep going, actually push through it. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Um, for me, virtual learning, I'm kind of in the middle because I'll be honest, I kind of did like it because I am introverted, so I don't like meeting people face to face a lot. But I didn't really feel a particular way personally. But I did get to learn a lot more about myself because of there was less school time because it was
Mm,
all online. So while that then school time, now personal time, I got to learn a lot, not only a lot about myself, but a lot about the world as well, because that's when I really started to pay a lot of attention to not only the news, but on social media as well. Again, 2020 and 2021 was when a lot of things, particularly with the Black and Brown community, started to happen, and it started to shift my focus a lot into trying to understand why this was happening and what can I do to try and at least make some sort of impact towards it. And that's really what helped me sort of be who I am right now is during 2020. I'd say that was one of the biggest years into forming who I am right now,
nice.
especially with Dr. Grace help.
I can't, like, I couldn't have, like, your answers today, like, I couldn't have, like, written this if I were to write it. It couldn't have been any better than this conversation that we had. So here's my last thing. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Curry. I'm going to read this Marva Collins quote, and I want to hear what you think about it. And then Glenford and Kendall, I want to hear what you think about it too. And Marva Collins was the woman who, I think it was in the 70s, I can't even remember, 70s or 80s. She was so disenchanted with what was happening in school with her students and how there was such low expectations for them that she started her own school in her house. She was like, nope, they coming to home with me. And she taught kids who nobody wanted to teach, who people thought couldn't learn, who people had written off as never being able to be anything. And 20 years later, they found all those students who were in her original classroom, and they were all doing like amazing things because of the messages that she gave them about their potential. She told them, "No, like you could do this. Like we're gonna do this." And she didn't even have a chair and a desk in the room that she used to teach with, because she stood up all day long and helped kids. She is amazing if you want to look her story up. But here's a quote from her. She said, "What good teachers have in common is that they set high standards for their students and they don't settle for anything less." And that doesn't mean just academic standards. High standards for their students and don't settle for anything less. So if your school isn't allowing you to have high standards for your kids, then you leave that school and you go to another school. Like, she was bold enough to like make a move when she knew it wasn't right. So how can teachers set high standards like that, Dr. Curry, and create the environment that you have where you reach your students and they want to reach those standards?
So I was just thinking, I don't know, I think I answered that question a little bit earlier, but what I do want to add is I'm going to invite some of my heroes into this space right now: Zaretta Hammond, Cornelius Minor, Gloria Latson Billings, Goldie Muhammad, Yolanda Seeley Ruiz. What I'm learning from them is that you have to be a warm demander. You don't give students permission to fail, but you make it impossible for them to fail. And you have to make a conscious effort every day. When I walk through this door, I'm going to make sure I do everything in my power to make sure that every child is successful in my class today. And then on that ride home, when you ask yourself, did you do everything? And the answer is no, then you have to keep reflecting. You have to keep questioning. You have to keep practicing. You have to keep reading. You have to stay curious until that answer is yes. Every single day when you ask, did I set high expectations? Did I meet them? Did I do what I was supposed to do for my young people? Because often what happens is, Dr. Hall, our children don't do well, but it's not because of them, it's because of us. They don't come to school and say, let me see, do I really want to be a great student today? Do I really want to learn? They walk in ready. They walk in geniuses. They wait on us to get our act together, waiting on us to get our things together. And if I could say one thing to teachers about reflection, I want them to walk away from the conversation with this. We have to stop talking about our young students who don't meet our expectations and fail. in ways that we don't talk about ourselves. I've been coaching for a long time, and when I coach teachers and they come to me and they're like defeated because of the evaluation they got, when they got like a basic, they'll say, but Dr. Curry, I didn't have the support I needed. I wasn't trained on that curriculum. I had a lot of loss in my family. I asked for help. I didn't know how to do this. I'm new to the school. I'm a first-year teacher. And so notice how the teacher blames the system. It was the systems. But when children don't meet our high expectations, we say they're not motivated. Their parents are not engaged enough. They didn't try hard enough. But if we start talking about their failures in ways we talk about our own, then I think we can shift everything for both ourselves and for our young people so that everyone benefits, because we're no longer doing school the way we do school that don't serve children well.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Kendall Glenford, any last thoughts to take us out?
I just feel like overall, just teachers in general, if they want to be, you know, just like Dr. Curry, or have that same impact on students, just like Dr. Curry did, really just understand students and treat the students like your peers instead of treating them like, you know, kids, because they growing up, you know, we all growing up in this. Every year it's like a whole new year for us, like our personalities, the way that we think and the way that we grow. And it's just like, the more you realize that these are not just students, these are people that are growing in front of you, then the more you can have a connection with them and actually be on their journey of greatness.
Love it. Okay, Glenford, take us home.
I just feel that in order for students and teachers to sort of like, not in a sense get along, but like sort of have this understanding that students need to get education from teachers, from vice versa. I think the sort of premise that of high standards and low standards, I don't really like those terms. I like the term potential, because that's really what it is you're not teaching them for this standardized test that they're not going to use anytime in the future. It should be teaching them to not only have confidence and motivation themselves, but to have the knowledge that they will need to be successful and to be themselves in life. And obviously, when you understand yourself and know what you want to be in life, you can be a very successful person.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. This is like, I think, one of my favorite podcast episodes that I've done. And I can't thank you enough for being here, and just hearing the student voice is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Curry.